First off, let's remember that there are linear attacks, okay, and there are rotational attacks. And we discussed in the previous instructional how the defense to one usually feeds into the strength of the other. Okay, so for example, my training partner goes in and starts putting an Achilles lock on me. Okay, from here, if my foot stays straight, he goes in, he starts putting Achilles lock pressure on, and he can start breaking it. So what I would do defensively is we would start going in and start rotating our leg. Okay, however, this does feed into my training partner's rotational lock, which would be the heel hook. Okay, so we have to be cognizant of that when we go in and we start looking to defend leg attacks or even offensively. But it's just an important concept to understand from both perspectives. So rotational locks and linear locks very often feed into each other. As you go to defend a rotational twisting lock, usually it requires some sort of straightening of your limb, and the straightening of your limb will feed into some sort of linear lock. In case of leg locks, it's usually heel hooks and toe holds into knee bars and Achilles locks. In terms of just defending your heel or hiding your heel rather, let's say for example, my training partner has me in a cross ashi position, okay, but I just like to use this as a general rule of thumb. Your shoelaces and your knee are usually going to be the indicator of whether or not your heel is exposed or not. So if my shoelaces, okay, the top of my foot, my instep, is facing towards my opponent and my knee is pointing towards my opponent, the more they point this way, the more heel exposure he has. The more they point away from my partner, the less heel exposure he has. So those are some key concepts to keep in mind. Whenever possible, we're looking to break the integrity of your training partner's ashigurami. So that usually means separating your training partner's feet to some capacity. That usually means that we can not only split your training partner's feet and knees, but we're looking to clear my opponent's knee line. Okay, so the more my training partner's knees are close together, and the more my knee, the closer my knee is inside of my training partner's knee line, or closer my training partner's hips are to mine, the more control he's going to have in the leg entanglement. Okay, even when I want to go to counter leg lock him, I don't want to do it in a situation where his leg entanglement is very strong. So I do want to break the integrity of his leg entanglement to a certain degree, enough that I can either extract my leg and then go back into his legs, or enough that I can disentangle his legs to the point that I can go into some sort of counter the positional attack. So from here, we're thinking shoelaces and knee pointing away, and whenever possible, pulling our heel close to our partner's hip, okay? He wants the foot up into the armpit. I want to pull it down by the hip to minimize heel exposure as best as I can. We're pointing our toe, and we're turning away. We're looking to separate our training partner's feet and knees as best as possible. So whenever we have opportunities to peel and lift and separate, we're going to use that. And in terms of getting our knee out from within the knee line, one of the best options that we have under these circumstances is going to be hamstring posts, where I take a foot and I post it on my opponent's hamstring. When I post on my opponent's hamstring, it's very difficult for him to keep me inside the leg entanglement. The only thing he can really do to keep me inside is hold on to an Achilles lock, so that will make it so that I can't completely extract the leg, but I can pull my knee out far enough to where he doesn't have very many legitimate attacks. And from situations like this, it becomes a lot easier for me to counter my training partner's legs, whether that be by extracting my leg entirely and then going back into my opponent's leg in some fashion, or whether it be me wanting to take advantage of some sort of positional attack, going back into tight waist situations where now he can't go in and attack my legs, going into back attack situations, which there's a bunch of variety of those. And so those are some of the main defensive principles. Another thing we're looking to achieve whenever we're in leg entanglements, and this is going to be very important, particularly for ashi bolos, but also for gaining positional advantage with passing positions and flanking our opponent, is whenever we can, we're looking to gain height with the hips. So say, for example, again, we're in a cross ashi. Or actually, let's go outside ashi, for example. Let's say, for example, I'm in a position like this, okay? Whenever I can build height with my hips, it's going to make it difficult for my training partner it's just going to make it a little bit more difficult for him to attack my legs. In addition, what it's going to do is make it so that I can go in and more easily split my training partner's feet and then start gaining advantages with angles, okay? Or if my training partner is connected with the feet, I can start using that to gain back exposure. Take my training partner's hips off the floor, and this will create situations where I can start gaining back exposure. I can use that to make sure that my knee is in a safe position, pointed away from my partner, and then take his back off the floor and start gaining exposure for various back attacks, stack passes, things of that nature. So this is some of the key things that we discussed in the previous instructional, just in terms of just keeping your legs safe overall, and the main priority being not getting broken in those positions. And once you feel comfortable slipping your heel, okay, because we're not going to be really discussing, heel slips in late stage defense in this instructional, because we covered it in the last instructional. This is more so, okay, we're in the leg entanglement, we know how to defend ourselves. Now, how do we go in and take advantage of these positions, counter our partner with both positional attacks and submission attacks? All right, guys, so now let's do a quick intro into the ashibolo. And primarily in this clip, we're going to focus on how we're going to finish the ashibolo back take. Ashibolo is going to come from a variety of different positions, both when your training partner's hips are on and off the floor. So we'll get into actually entering into ashibolo from a variety of different leg entanglements as we progress through the instructional. What we're going to look at now is getting into the position, okay, and the actually ashibolo position, what the things that we have to do in order to win that position, what we need to avoid to make sure our partner doesn't counter us or re-bolo us, because that is an actual possibility that off of this attack you can get countered, okay? So just a few things that we need to make sure that we do for sure to make sure that we can finish the position, and actually how we can secure the back take. That way, as the instructional progresses and we show it through the different leg entanglements, you'll already know how to actually finish the position, and you'll just be able to practice it from the different entry points. Okay, so ashibolo, the position itself is essentially going to be right here. Okay, so when I wedge my training partner's hip with my knee, so my knee comes in front of the hip, and I essentially have my training partner's top knee, okay, between my two knees. And from here, we're going to hit a berimbolo type roll, and we're going to end up in this situation here. Okay, so this is the ashibolo position. Okay, so from here, how are we going to finish this this back take? Okay, there's back exposure, and it's always going to be low back exposure when it comes down to the ashibolo. Okay, sometimes when we go in for back takes, we start off with upper back exposure. That's usually, I'd say, one of the more common ways, especially without the gi. The problem with no gi is as things get slippery and we don't have grips to hold on to, berimbolo type movements can become difficult, and so it's hard to finish just conventional berimbolos. But off the leg entanglement, okay, this is one of the exceptions where it actually is very, very powerful to be able to use this berimbolo type roll, okay, from top position. So from here, a couple things that are very, very important. When we roll and we end up in this position, okay, we need to make sure that my inside knee, okay, the knee that's wedging in front of the hip, okay, is pointing up to the ceiling. We need to plant that foot on the floor, and we need to make sure that our knee points up to the ceiling. Okay, let's do a quick back roll. When I go in and I back roll, a big problem here is that when I go in and I hit that roll, and we'll look at how to recover from this in a second if it does fail, but if I go through and I hit the roll, and my left knee in this case, the knee that's wedging the hip, points down or is not active and it's straight here, okay? It's so easy for my partner to just put his hips on the floor. And now from here, I lose the back exposure, and I actually have a potential to have my own leg get attacked. Okay, so he can go in and pull my leg back in. Now let's contrast that to when you can actually stay here. Okay. You guys will see, if we contrast that to when I actually utilize my left leg properly. Okay, my left leg's not just on the floor and relaxed here. Okay, because a lot of people, they focus on the right leg. The right leg does have a utility, okay, the leg that's behind his knee. But the leg that's in front of his knee, the knee that wedges in front of the hip, is probably the most important, at least initially, because that's what gives me the back exposure that I need. So notice that from here, Placido's hips are completely on the floor. I have no back exposure here, okay? And that's when there's a danger he could start pulling my leg back in. When I pull my knee towards me, my left knee will change the angle in a second. I plant my foot on the floor and I point it up to the ceiling. That's what gives me the back exposure. Now I use that in conjunction with my right leg extending. So my right leg extending and my left knee pulling is what gives me that back exposure. In addition, my two knees have to point up to the ceiling, and my right knee actually want to overemphasize pointing it out wide. That's going to give me more so of a rotation of my partner's hip. And I want to really focus on planting and back heeling my 2 feet to the floor. Okay. So it's almost a little bit counterintuitive because I am scissoring my legs. So my right leg is pushing, but it is also back heeling and it is also flaring. Okay. And that's what's going to give me this position here where I can go in and now I have back exposure of my partner. Okay. So let's look at that in a full transition where I managed to get into a leg entanglement, and however I did it, I went into my ashibolo. Okay, we'll look at these techniques in a little bit more detail in a second. I got into this position here. Okay, this is going to be this particular situation. His hips are on the floor, but there's going to be situations where the hips will be off the floor. So we roll through. As I'm rolling, I'm stomping the ground, and I'm flaring my right knee as my left knee plants on the floor and pulls towards me. So the right knee flares and pushes. My right leg is still back heeling, okay, to make sure that I keep his knee his knee trapped. I pull my left knee to my chest. I push with the right knee. I flare the right knee, and I get my partner's hips off the floor. Okay, let's just hit a little rotation here. Now, right when I get to this position, how am I going to finish? From here, I have the back exposure, and I have to secure the back tape. What I'm going to do from here is as I flare and I take my partner's hips off the floor, my right hand goes to the hip. My left hand is going to come up to my training partner's trap, either at the top or the bottom, whichever one is more readily available. Okay, both are good. We grip our partner at the traps. So this way, if at any point he tried to turn to his knees, I have an ability to carry him up. Also, or he's going to carry me up actually. Also, I have an ability to pull my training partner's upper body closer to me. Okay. Now, once I get here, my left leg is going to be my initial hook. So I switch the left hook in as my right hook comes out and we have a bottom hook in place. There are going to be times where when you do this, your partner makes it difficult for you to insert the hook. Maybe he straightens his left leg or whatever the case is. So we put the hook in, and now from here, I'm going to use my right leg to pull my training partner's leg and put a bend in it. And the moment I get here, it's so important that I plant my foot on the floor and I lock a triangle. Okay, you don't want to, at least initially, lock a scorpion. Lock a triangle and plant your foot on the floor. Okay, so this will be my first step. Because now, when my partner tries to shuffle his hips to the floor, I just point my 2 knees up to the ceiling, and it makes it impossible for him. If I try to lock a scorpion too quickly, he can post on my shoulders, and he can start shuffling the hips. Good, and potentially, he starts countering me. So what I want to do, under these circumstances, is aggressively flare my knees out wide and plant my foot hard to the floor. So when he tries to rotate me that way, it's so hard for him. Obviously, I'd be holding onto the hip and to the trap. Now, once I get here, we hold. And now from here, I make an adjustment where I pull my training partner onto me first, stretch now with the scorpion to get his hips low and on top of my hips. And right from here, I bring my knee up to his knee. We shift our hips out to the side, and we can start going in and locking up body triangle or 2 hooks in. Okay, so one more time. However we do it, we end up in this ashibolo position. My knee wedges in front of the hip. Okay, we'll go over that in a little bit more detail. I just want to go over the finishing here. We roll through. We